Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the E4, talk about if it's any good now, and things that I would personally change on the tank. So we're going to have a look at the stats. So 3000 DPM I don't think is bad. That is running it with that is running it with the rammer. Honestly, I don't think it needs calibrated shells. I think the penetration is more than enough. I mean, it's one of the best. With HE, it's 99. You can get it up to 99 if you are running it with calibrated shells, and 394 if you're running it with the rammer. But without that, it's 375. If you're running it with the rammer, you're looking at 375 on your APCR and 285 on your AP, which, to be honest, is more than enough. It's more than enough. You shouldn't need to run it with the calibrated shells. That is just my personal opinion. You do have a 640 alpha gun. It's a 155 millimeter. The rate of fire is 4.81. I mean, halfway. It's not the best, not the worst. And the reload is 12.46. The gun aim time is 244. Not the best, but the dispersion, however, is one of the best when it comes to tank destroyers at 0.308. You've got 6 degrees of gun depression, and that's not fantastic. I mean, 6 degrees of gun depression isn't great, and the speed is 35 kilometers per hour. So, I mean, stat-wise, the tank's okay. It really is. It's all right. The only thing I really sort of am disappointed with the tank is the armor profile. Now, it's got an amazing turret. Either side of the gun, you can get to sort of almost 400 millimeters thick. However, on the hatch is very weak. You got the middle section there. The upper plate is quite thick. The lower plate is quite weak. But for me, it's all about the hatch. And I always talk about this tank and how I think it just needs for the hatch to be removed or just strengthened, like the E3. You can, if they strengthen that hatch, they can make even the lower plate even weaker. Like, I don't care what they do, because at the minute with the hatch, it is a nice tank. You got to remember, it's not really a tank destroyer, it's more of a heavy, but everyone aims for the hatch. So we're going to compare it with the E3. So with the E3, it's got better DPM than the E3, sort of 150 or 200, almost around about 200 better than the E3. The penetration is better. However, the E3 got buffed and it has now 680 alpha on its gun, on its per shot, and this only has 640. So it doesn't do as much alpha as the E3 does, but it does have better penetration and it does have better DPM. The rate of fire is better. The reload is better by around about 2 seconds as well. The same caliber, same shell velocity. The aim time is slightly worse on the E4, but the dispersion is slightly better. Has 6 degrees of gun depression compared to the E3's 8. That's one thing I would change. I'd swap that around. You know, let the E4 have 8 degrees of gun depression. It needs it because it needs to hide the hatch. They go the same speed as well. So if they're not going to buff the hatch, if Wargaming don't want to buff the hatch, as I've said, if they just swap the gun depression around, and this has 8 degrees, and also what I would add is that speed boost, because the E3 has the speed boost, and that is something I would actually like with this tank. And even just adding the speed boost and maybe 8 degrees of gun depression, then I can make do with how the hatch is. I can make do, because at least you can get on a ridge and you can hide that hatch to some extent. However, even though I talk bad about the tank, it is still a good tank. It is still a good tank. It's not an E3, however. The E3 I still think better all day long in pretty much every aspect, apart from that it hasn't got a turret and you can't turn, just the turret. It is still a strong tank. It is a strong tank, but it's just everybody goes for that hatch, and it's frustrating for me because, like, the E3 has an amazing armor profile. It has a speed boost. It got buffed with the speed, and it has a very, very strong hatch. So I wish they would do something with the hatch, but again, that's my personal opinion. You know, they might buff the hatch and it might be OP. You don't know, and probably it might be, but that's what I'm saying. If they're not going to buff the hatch, maybe buff it in other areas or change it in other areas. You know, I'm not just asking, I want 8 degrees of gun depression, or I want the speed boost. If they're going to do that, then okay, nerf it in some other aspects. You know, leave the hatch as it is. Make the lower plate a lot easier to penetrate, but it is as it is, and you can still perform well in the tank. In fact, one of my highest ever damage games is actually in the E4 years ago. I think it was almost 7.9k damage, and I actually carried. I really did carry, and it was a fun game. And that is when I just started off with YouTube. I forgot to record. I think that was literally like weeks with me starting YouTube, but yeah, it was a fun game. It was, I still remember it to this day. I was playing it at work in the canteen with my workmate, waiting to go home. We had like 5 minutes to go home, and he was like, should we just have a quick battle? And I managed to do 7.8k damage, and yeah, because of that, I didn't hit the record. There wasn't such thing as replays back then, so I had to record every single battle, and when you don't record them, you miss out. So it is a tank that can still carry to some aspects, and you can still do a lot of damage. However, a lot of people do like to play the E4 and the E3 to some extent as a tank destroyer. I get that they are tank destroyers, but these tanks, especially the E4, because it has that turret, you don't, it's a heavy. You've got to get that out of your head that it's a tank destroyer. Do not go at the back, especially on a map like this. You can see, like myself on this map, Dead Rail, most people would just go to the top and just sit there in a tank destroyer. I went with the mediums. You know, I went with the mediums to clear the enemy mediums, which we've done. If I wouldn't have cleared the enemy mediums, you can see, if you just rewind it back, how the enemy rushed. They really rushed, and they probably didn't expect a massive tank destroyer to be there, and because of that, we managed to take a win. And honestly, I don't think if I wouldn't have gone that way, this would have probably been a loss. But nope, we still managed to end up on 5k damage, 800 block damage, so you can still get the block damage. We got lucky because of the angles we was at with the Jaegeru, but we still managed to carry, and that was a ratings game, and it was still a fun game to play. And again, you can see here, this game, this guy playing it, he went around the map, and he's going to come behind him, and that's how I find the E4 really plays best. You know, it's like a surprise tank. It's a tank that you don't expect to be there. You expect it to be at the back of the map trying to farm some damage, but yeah, for me, the tank's not about that. The tank isn't about that at all. It's a heavy tank. If you can, depending on where you spawn, I was lucky with Dead Rail because I actually spawned at the top, so it didn't take me too long to get to their position. But it's, again, if you can play it like this, if you can get to the side of the enemy, if you can get around the enemy, then this tank really does shine. And that's where I'd love that speed boost, you know, that extra speed boost, just so you can get there a lot quicker than you normally would. But if you're playing it like a heavy at the front line, people are still going to penetrate your lower plate. They're going to penetrate your hatch as well. So you can't go hold down. You can hide your lower plate, of course, but then you've got that massive hatch on top that anybody can penetrate. Mediums, light tanks, doesn't matter who they are, anybody can penetrate that hatch. And that's where I find the problem is with this tank, the fact that everybody just shoots your hatch. It's got an amazing turret, like an amazing turret, very, very strong turret, but it's no use because you've still got a massive hatch on top. Maybe if they make it smaller, like slightly smaller, then maybe it would make it better. But played correctly, it is still a fun tank to play. You can still do a lot of damage, and you can still bully the enemy team, which we're going to see here from our guy here. So he's already got 3 kills. It is a 3 versus 4, and of course he's now going to go for the VK. He is a one shot to bring it now down to a 2 versus 3. As long as he works well with this 1-2-1, then they could actually come out victorious. They've got the hit points to deal with it, and again, the DPM I don't find that bad. The DPM isn't bad. 3,000 I don't think is bad at all for what the tank is. Of course, if you can get that HE out, do get that HE. If you want to run it with calibrated shells because it has higher HE, then of course do that. But also you've got to remember you're an American tank that has no armor when it comes to the rear or the side, so do bear that in mind as well. So he's just now sitting behind this Object 263. The 121 is just gonna die there, but now the 113 is on a reload. He can take care of him, but the IS-7 he's got enough hit points. He's going to take 2 shots to hit that guy, but he's also a 2-shot, so he needs a bounce. He has to get a bounce unless he gets this reload first. And even from that angle, he still manages to get a lucky bounce, which proves to be absolutely vital. So he is going to reload, and you can see here, I mean, there's not a lot of times with this tank that you do have to switch to APCR. I think that the AP pen is enough. The APCR pen is more than enough as well. So you don't need to run it with calibrated shells. But if you are going to grind this tank, it is a nice tank when played correctly. But yeah, you just got to play it like a heavy. So let me know your thoughts on the E4. Would you change it in any way? Hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm Meadsy, and I'll catch you all soon. Bye bye.